Here's an interview from one of our past shows on Rock and Metal Revival. If you're interested in hearing full shows, go to our Facebook page and check out our list of affiliates for times and places where you can hear Rock and Metal Revival. There's one of my favorite from W.A.S.P, and that is Blind in Texas on Rock and Metal Revival. And been a fan of this band, Jerry, since the first time I saw them open for Kiss back in the day.
Nice.
And this year they're out on their 40th anniversary tour, and we are honored to welcome Blackie-Lawless to Rock and Metal Revival. Welcome to the show, Blackie.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
It is, like I said, it's been since now 2019 since we've seen W.A.S.P out on stage, and I just watched some videos of the band. You guys sounded great. Was it just like riding a bike and getting back out there with the W.A.S.P classics all again, or are you having to relearn this whole show for this 40th tour?
You know, the first time we had a long break was around 1995. And we went for the better part of 3 years. And I went in a rehearsal studio, and the guys handed me a guitar, and I put it on, and I thought, I don't know how to do this. And it was like the first day in rehearsal, it was like a fish out of water. But this time was different for some reason, I can't tell you why. We went into rehearsal, and everything was clicking, and it was just like you said. It was like, we'd never left. And it's just, an interesting thing happened, though, that while we were rehearsing, I just felt this joy I hadn't felt in a long, long time. And we went and we did a couple of festivals in Sweden. And I don't know if it was because of the pandemic. Hey, it could have been me. Maybe this has been happening all along and I couldn't see it. But I saw a joy on people's faces I haven't seen in a long time either. So it was really, really, it was a cool thing. And it's something I hadn't experienced in a long time.
Nice. Now, with such a big catalog of great tunes, how do you narrow it down for a set list?
Difficult. We are in rehearsals right now for this 40th anniversary tour, and we're struggling with it right now as we speak because, when we originally started, the show was going to be an hour 40, and then it went to an hour and 50, and now it's at 2 hours. And it's just, and there's still entire works, entire records that we're never going to be able to touch. So it's just, it is, it's problematic, but I guess it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, that's true. Now, it's been over 10 years since W.A.S.P toured the U.S., and I had heard that it was the W.A.S.P fans that demanded this U.S. tour with the promoters. How did that all come about, Blackie?
It was the craziest thing I think I've ever seen because, in the business, you try not to point fingers at people when things aren't going the way you like. I don't like to sling mud. I don't like to do any of that stuff. But we kept getting, the fans were upset. And finally, I just had to tell them, I go, listen, this has nothing to do with the band. It's not like, we're blackballing America or anything like that. There are promoters out there that don't think that we can sell tickets. So any band, and I don't care who it is, will go probably anywhere if they're offered a show that's decent. And so I told them, I says, all right, this is the way it's going to have to work. If this is going to happen, you're going to have to make your presence known. Now, I said that never really dreaming that they would band together the way they did. Thousands of them came together. Thousands, literally.
Nice.
And started petitioning promoters across the country. But even then with that, the promoters in a lot of places didn't really have the confidence, so we had to take, we did stuff really on what we call the back end, where we took very low guarantees to go into the rooms that we thought were the right rooms for us to be in, and lo and behold, half these shows are going to be sold out before we even hit the road.
Yeah.
So, a gigantic tip of the hat to the fan base. Like I said, I've never seen anything like this happen before.
Nice. Yeah, I was looking at your tour schedule, and there's some of them, there's 5-6 dates right in a row, and then a day off, and then another 5. Dude, that's going to be hard on the throat, wouldn't it? After all this time? No?
It's what we do, It's
the muscles,
I've been blessed with this thing in my throat, that's just, it's, if I take care of it, it takes care of me.
Nice.
Good point. Now, one of the things that first attracted me to W.A.S.P was the visual and the show. but over the years, I've really learned to appreciate the music. How much of the early shows with the costumes and effects are we going to see on this 40th anniversary tour?
Everything.
Ooh.
The cod pieces and all?
Well, you'll see it. I can't reveal to you exactly how we're going to do it.
Okay.
But when we started billing this, we told people we were going back to the beginning. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Now, the way we're going to do it is going to be a little bit different. And like I said, I can't go into detail to what that is. But what people are going to see in this is a retrospective of everything we've done for 40 years.
Wow.
Outstanding.
Sweet, sweet. Now, did that saw blade codpiece just destroy the back of your guitars?
It's funny you say that. We're doing a thing for these. Well, it's going to be funny for people because we're doing these VIP meet and greets. First time we've ever done it. And quite honestly, it may be the last time we ever do it because for a lot of reasons. It's not that I don't want to do it, but I have reservations about doing it. But anyway, one of the things people are going to see is they're going to have an opportunity to actually hold that original Black Widow bass that I had.
Man.
They're going to see huge hunks of paint and wood taken out of the back of it because it would literally... just as I'm talking to you, I've got a funny image that's running through my head, but it's almost like, imagine you're standing there singing, trying to play, and you got a beaver trying to eat through the back of your guitar, to get out. And that's literally what was happening. I mean, it was gnawing a hole in the back of that bass. No. And I kid you not, it's a quarter of an inch deep.
Oh, man.
Unreal.
So it was real.
Nobody's ever asked me that question, and so I've never had that, to answer that. But it's just that's the image that popped in my head.
Yeah, because see, I didn't think that blade was real. I thought maybe that's a plastic rubber blade or something, and it folds over or something.
You don't get those at Toys Blades R Us. No, you got to make those from scratch.
Oh man!
And the original one was from a 12-inch ripsaw.
Oh dang!
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Now, Blackie, when I saw this tour, when it first was announced, and I looked at who you're going out on tour with, I was like, wow, Armored Saint. And from what I understand, it's the original Armored Saint. And you've got Schenker for a couple of dates. Now, is there a friendship between the three bands? What is the connection between you guys?
Well, W.A.S.P and Armored Saint go back to the beginning at the Troubadour. And as a matter of fact, on October 30th of this year, the day before Halloween, was the first time the two bands ever played together at the Troubadour. So this October 30th, we will be, I believe, in Tempe, Arizona. And that'll be a special night for us because, what are the chances of any band lasting 4 years?
Yeah.
Much less 40 years. And then to have two bands playing together on the same night 40 years later, I mean, the planets got aligned for that to happen. I don't know of any other situation where this has ever happened in the history of music.
That's cool.
Really cool. Yeah. Now, I saw some videos like Red did of you guys playing in Stockholm earlier this year, and you guys sounded great. Who else is in the band?
Well, the band is pretty much the same band it's been for the last 20-plus years. I mean, Mike Duda is our bass player, and Doug Blair is our guitarist, and Achilles Priester is the drummer. So it's a more stable lineup than anything we've had since the beginning.
Wow.
Nice.
Now, I know you've been writing your autobiography, which has got to be awesome. I can't wait to read it when it's done. But first, I mean, how is that coming along? And what's harder to write, Blackie, a new album, new material for an album, or your autobiography?
The album. Because when I sat down to start writing the book, I mean, it just poured out of me. And that was an interesting process, too, because never having done that before, you always think of the first thing that comes to anybody's heads is the things that stand out. But what I found, more than anything, it was a process of self-discovery, because if you look at any given event that may happen in your life that's significant, we all have those, those signposts that point us in one direction or another. It's one thing to write about it, but to get to the root of it what you have to do is go back and do some real self-examination and say, okay, what led me to this, and then what led me to that, and so forth. And when you do that, it reminds me, I've heard stories of psychiatrists when they tell people if they've gone through something that's intense in their life, or if they lost a loved one or something like that, write them a letter. And I found that doing this is very much like that, because, I've never done, the thing that the psychiatrist has said. I mean, fortunately, I've never had been put in that position, but it reminded me of hearing what they were saying, because it ends up being a letter to yourself, and you discover some interesting stuff, the good, the bad, the ugly, all that. And it's quite a revealing process, because the person you are now is not the person you were when you were doing some of those idiotic things, or when something intense happened in your life that wasn't idiotic, but again, what led you from point A to point B to become that person, and you look back on it now and you go, wow, look how I've changed, because writing, whether it's lyrics or anything like that, you try to write them as multidimensional as you can, because the listener, when they listen to it today, you want them in 5 years to be able to look at those same lyrics and see something totally different, because who they are in 5 years is not who they are right now. So that's really what you're trying to do.
Wow. That's pretty in-depth there. That's pretty cool. Now, Live in the Raw is one of my favorite live albums. I used to drive around with it blasting all the time. Now, is there any chance, it's been a while since you guys released a live album, any chance of recording some shows for this on this tour?
Well, technology has so changed things. I don't really know. The first thing I would think, and again, this is off the top of my head based on your question, but the first thing I would think, instead of a live record, would be maybe some sort of a streaming event.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not saying that's going to happen either, but I'm just, we're just being candid here, and I'm just telling you the first thing that's coming off the top of my head.
That would be cool too. Yeah,
that would be very nice. Yeah. Now, Blackie, in 40 years of W.A.S.P, what do you feel your greatest accomplishment has been?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. I really, again, the way we're talking right now in this interview is very conversational. So, I've learned to try to not to edit myself. I mean, we all have filters. And we try to run our answers through filters whenever we're speaking, and especially in public. But I've learned over the years to try to be as candid as I can, because that's the truth. Because of any artist, if you're going to have a real career, and when I say a real career, I'm not talking about 5 or 10 years. I'm talking about somebody that's done it for 20 years, 30 years. To have that real career, you have to get intimate with your audience. And the only way you can do that is to crack your skull open and let them come around, walk around barefooted inside your head. Yeah. To discover all the good and the not so good and all that. And that's the only way you can do it, is either in interviews like we're doing now, or lyrics. And so if you're going to take those people on that lifelong ride, the only way you're ever going to be intimate with them, where they think or feel like they really know you, is to be as truthful with them as you can be. And so that's what I try to do.
Nice.
So that's a long, drawn-out answer to say to you, to answer your original question, I couldn't tell you. I really don't know.
Well, you're honest.
I would think that would be subjective to the listener or the viewer.
Okay.
True. All right. What piece of gear do you have now, that you wish you had back in the 80s?
Oh, yeah. There's all kinds of stuff. One of the best things I ever did in 1990, before we did the Crimson Idol, I built my own recording studio. And it was the single greatest thing I ever did. Because the record before that was The Headless Children. And it took us a year and a half to make that record in a commercial studio.
Ooh,
and it was $600,000 then in 1989 to do that record.
Wow.
And I'm standing there with this little CD in my hand, this little piece of plastic, looking at it, thinking, this is what I get for $600,000? What's wrong with this math? So we thought, how bad can it be to go build our own place? And it took a boatload of research.
Oh.
But again, it ended up being the single best thing I ever did. So over the years, you end up accumulating little things that you had used in other studios before, or things you always wanted. I'm an analog guy.
Yeah.
So we have Pro Tools in the studio. We use Pro Tools to transfer with, once it's recorded onto tape. So we use that old technology. I think it's, hey, listen,
sounds
if you want to make an expensive sounding record, there's only one way to do it. You got to spend the money. Yes, it's cheaper to work on digital, but to me, it doesn't have the sound quality. So I guess, again, I've given you another long drawn out answer here, but
that's fine.
Honestly, I think we've got pretty much everything we want, when it comes to having things in the studio. We got stuff we don't need, let's put it that way.
Lately, Blackie, a lot of bands that are from the 80s and the late 70s and stuff are all coming out with projects where they're like, oh, we went into the vault. We went into the vault and we found all these old songs. Do you have a catalog of old songs that we might see on a box set or something someday? Or if they didn't make the original album, they're never going to see the light of day?
We don't have a lot of stuff that was not released. But what we do have is early demos.
Okay.
And I know this is going to sound like a sales pitch to you when I say this, but by the time we recorded what ended up being our first album, that was effectively the fourth set of demos that we did. The demos that we did prior to that first album, which were still the same songs, Love Machine, I Want to Be Somebody, all that.
Mm-hmm.
Those demos, if I had to do it over again, I would have never recorded the record that people have in their possessions now. I would have put out those demos. Now, when you sign to a major label, they don't want you to do that because they want to own the masters. But those demos were better than the original record. And the reason I say that is because they're more raw. And we've since, we've cataloged, we've transferred everything from 2-inch over to digital, to archive it. But we still have the original 2-inch tapes, and we won't get rid of those. We keep those. But I was listening to the transfers to make sure they were okay. And I was hearing things I haven't heard for 35 years.
Wow.
And it was a real treat. I mean, we were listening to Part of Headless the other day, and I've not heard those original tracks since we did them. And it was really cool because where we cut the drums was a Hollywood, or a studio in Hollywood, and it was had originally been part of a health club / fitness center that Cecil B. DeMille used to own, the old Hollywood director.
Oh, okay.
Well, in this health club was a gigantic Olympic-sized swimming pool. And it's the same swimming pool that when you see the movie It's a Wonderful Life, when you see Jimmy Stewart there at the high school dance, and they're dancing and the floor opens up and they fall in the pool. That's the swimming pool. Well, we were in the studio looking around because the studio was upstairs. And so somebody said, hey, you know what? There's an old abandoned health club downstairs. You ought to check it out. So we went down, Frankie Benelli and I went down there, the drummer, and we were looking around, and there's that swimming pool, and it's empty. Now, Frankie was a gigantic Led Zeppelin fan, loved Bono, Bonzo and all that. So he says, I wonder what the drums would sound like in there. We took a set of drums and we set them up. It sounded like cannons going off in there. And I was listening to those tracks the other day, just the drums by themselves. You can hear his voice counted off. And it was a real treat for me because, he's been gone almost 2 years now. Yeah. And to be able to go back and just hear his voice again and listen to what he did inside that swimming pool, it was a real treat.
I bet. Now, one of our favorite songs, Brett and mine both, is Heaven's Hung in Black. Now, you think that song could have benefited from maybe adding some cowbell? No, maybe not.
Maybe not.
He has to ask that question. We ask everybody that
That's
question.
a great answer. I love that.
How did I get that feeling? Yes.
Yeah. Well, Blackie, it has been an honor and a pleasure to have
Well,
you.
hey, it could have been. I could have easily written it as Cowbell Tongue in Black.
Oh, there you go.
In Wisconsin, that would have been a
Gotcha.
#1 hit.
Yeah, definitely.
Sure.
Well-
Dr. Demento.
Well, Blackie, it has been a pleasure and an honor. We've been playing your music on this show for 16 years, and we're both big fans, and we appreciate you coming out. We hope to get to see you when you're in Milwaukee. And we always let the artist pick the song on the way out of the interview. So from your catalog, what would you like us to play?
Well, if we don't play "I Want to Be Somebody" at a show, there's usually going to be a riot. So I would say that would be the song that people would probably want to hear the most.
All right. Blackie-Lawless, it's been a pleasure having you on Rock and Metal Revival.
Thanks, guys. I sure appreciate it.